Alright guys, I'm excited for today's video because in today's video we will be building a bioactive enclosure for my new species of geckos which I've just bought. So join me on my journey whilst I build out my bioactive enclosure for my new geckos. I'm hoping that this video will help you be able to create your own bioactive setups for your pet geckos. So to begin with, I'm going to show you what species of gecko that we will be making a bioactive enclosure for, and then let's get started on the build. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so the species of gecko which we will be doing this bioactive enclosure for are these elegant geckos. Now, elegant geckos are an arid species, so our bio build will be tailored towards arid species. So if you have a arid species, then you'll be able to replicate what I do in this video to create your own arid bioactive enclosures for whatever arid species you keep. Now, elegant geckos have similar care requirements to leopard geckos. However, these guys are a lot smaller than a leopard gecko, but also you can keep these communally. Let me know in the comments if you've ever come across this species. Not a lot of people seem to realize that this species actually exists. So if you own some of these geckos yourself, let me know in the comments and I'd love to hear your experiences with them. Now, I will actually be doing a separate care video for these geckos. So if you were interested in keeping this species, then you'll have all of the information in that video, which you'll need in order to actually care for these geckos. So keep your eyes open for that video. So now that you've seen the geckos, let's crack on with building their enclosure. Okay, so this is the enclosure which we're going to be using for this build. Now this is just a spare enclosure which I had lying around from a previous project, but I want to make use of it, so we're going to do the build in this. So now that you've seen the enclosure which we're going to use, now let me show you the main product for this build. So this is the Zoomed excavator clay. Now, the reason why I'm going to be using this is because it's perfect for creating burrows inside an enclosure. Now, my main goal for this is to create a whole entire tunnel system, but we'll get onto that in a second. But basically, what's going to happen is we're going to mix this substrate with water. And once we've done that, we can then start molding our background and our cave system. Once we've actually put all of this into the enclosure how we want it, around what we will be going over next, basically what's going to happen is this substrate is going to dry and then it's going to hold those burrows that we've created. So now you might be asking yourself, how on earth are you going to create a tunnel system with this stuff? So now let me show you my idea behind how we're going to do this. So my idea is to use these long balloons. Now these are just regular long party balloons that you've probably seen clowns make dogs out of and stuff like that. But my idea is to basically run these around the whole entire base of the enclosure. Now the reason being is, for example, let's put this in. This now creates this whole section, which is going to be our tunnel, basically. And once we've used the excavator clay to create around this, what's going to happen is once it actually dries, all we're simply going to do is pop the balloon. Now, once I pop the balloon, obviously we're going to have to remove all the bits of the balloon. But once the substrate's dry, we should be able to pop it, remove these balloons, and then our tunnel system would have been created around the base. Then my idea is basically to use these toilet roll holders and have them sticking up at an angle. So then the geckos, again, once we remove this, the geckos will be able to go down the tunnels in each corner to get to this whole underground system. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get this done. So let's crack on with it, shall we? Okay, so to begin with, what we need to do is mix up the substrate, or the clay, should we say. So I've got the bag open here. Now, all we're going to do is simply pour it all into this bucket, and then we need to mix it with water. So I've got my water here, and I've also got a trowel. Now I'm using this to basically mix all of the substrate up with the water. So let's actually crack on with mixing this up. So this is the consistency which you want the excavator clay like. It's basically a little thicker than cement. You don't want it too thick, but also you don't want it too thin. So we have our balloons into position, ready to make our tunnel system. We've also got our substrate ready. So the next thing we're going to do is actually start putting this substrate in. So all I'm going to simply do is basically take a handful of it and basically dump it down exactly where I want it. So we're going to go around the whole enclosure and just get all of this down. So I'm going to do this corner first. So all I'm going to do is basically put that here, go up around it like so, just so that it holds it there. Then we're going to do a tiny bit there, tiny bit there, and then a tiny bit there. Now it looks like a mess, but I promise once it's set, it's going to look really smart. Okay, and then the next one, straight down there, like so. And then all I do is just throw it in, like so. Okay. All right, well, that balloon just popped. Okay, so because the balloon just popped, what my idea now is to do, we've still got the tunnel going around the back and obviously these 3 holes to go in, but we're going to basically create a normal cave just here with this balloon. So we're going to get this covered now. Okay, so unfortunately the balloon at the front of the enclosure accidentally popped, but in all honesty it doesn't really matter at this point because I can add another balloon back in, which we will do in a minute. But first let me just quickly show you the existing tunnel system. So this is the side panel, so obviously we've got it all covered up, but you can see where the tube comes down. So our geckos will actually be able to move freely around here, and then if we turn the enclosure around, again, there's a whole nother section across the back where the geckos will be able to go down. And then obviously each tube will be able to remove and the geckos will be able to fully go down between them. And again, we'll pop this balloon and that will create a nice little cave area there. So it's starting to look like how I wanted it to. I've been thinking, and I'm thinking about putting another little cave here, just so that it makes it easier for them to actually get up to like the top ones. And we're also going to put some slate into the background. So we're going to do that now quickly. Okay, so today's another day, and as you can see, it's starting to take shape really nicely. We've left it overnight to sort of just settle a bit. And today, what I plan on doing is pulling out these tubes, popping all of the balloons, and then we can move on to the next part. Now, if you actually look here, this is the colour of the excavator clay, and personally, I didn't really want that as my sort of background colour, so all I did was use some of this leopard gecko bedding by Habitat, which looks like this substrate, which you can see on the screen currently, and all I simply did was chuck it onto the background. And this is how I changed the texture and colour of the background. Another reason why I did this was because I wanted the slate to actually blend in quite nicely, and when it was all this colour, I felt like the slate was a bit out of place. Now that I've chucked the leopard gecko bedding onto the top of it, it actually looks really nice. I'm really happy with how this is coming along. So next of all, we need to remove these tubes. I've already removed this one just to make sure that it actually did what I wanted it to. So we're going to remove them and then we're going to remove the balloons quickly. So these 3 tunnels are basically the entrances to the actual cave system, which goes along here and down to here. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is popping the balloons. So all I'm going to do is simply use this to push on the balloon and make it pop. So that's that one done. And then, oh, why is that one not popping? There we go. So that's that popped. So now what I'm doing is I'm just getting hold of the balloon and I'm just going to pull that out. And then I've got the tongs down the tunnel, and as you can see, that's the balloon that I'm grabbing hold of. I gently grab hold of it and just pull it out. That's that. So that can go into the bin. Now, if you actually look here, you can actually see the whole entire tunnel underneath. It's hard to sort of tell from the depth of the camera, but there is a whole entire tunnel there. If I do this, look at that. That is an entire tunnel. That's well smart, isn't it? So I'm going to get a hoover to clear all those little bits that you can see at the end. But this actually worked exactly how I envisioned it, so I'm actually pretty chuffed about that. So the next thing to do is just clear up all this mess which is at the bottom of each of the tunnels, and then we can move on to the next bit. Okay, so that is our tunnels cleaned out. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pop this balloon and see how the caves came out. So I've got my blade, so let's actually do that now. Oh, it's not popping. What the eh? Why is that not popping? What? Why is this not popping? I've never tried to stab a balloon and it not pop. Why is this not popping? Bloody hell. Oh, there we go. So now we're going to remove that, like so. And then we're going to do the exact same again with this one. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is the bigger cave. I've got my torch out so you can actually see a bit better inside there. It's quite sort of deep, to be fair. Now, obviously, we're going to be cleaning this up a little bit and it's going to look a little bit nicer. It's also going to have substrate in there for them to actually sit on. And again, we've got the small cave, which I'm going to have to do this. You can't fully see in it, but it is just a little version of what we've just seen. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this is coming out. Obviously, it's nowhere near done yet. We've got a lot of cleaning up to do, a lot of touching up to do, but that's okay. Now, originally, we did have a balloon which was actually along the bottom here because I wanted it to go around the whole thing. But unfortunately, obviously, the balloon did pop. So we're now going to try and install this section basically along here. So what we're going to have to do is carve this out, slot that in, and then we can build the last tunnel around it. And it's basically going to pop out of the substrate like so once it's done. So we're going to get that done now, and then we can move on to the next bit. So what I'm going to do is, obviously, we only need up to about sort of here. I mean, we've basically got the outline because of this bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to basically just chop away at the section that we don't want anymore. So here's a close-up. Now you can actually properly see down the side of that tunnel. Obviously, we're now going to create a tunnel coming along and out. So all we're basically going to do is slide our balloon in to this section, like so. And again, we're just going to do exactly the same process as we did earlier. Okay, so now you can see that we have our entrance. We now need to pop this balloon and remove that, and then that's that tunnel created. So we're going to get onto that now. So I'm just going to quickly clean this up. Cool, so that's that. Now we need to remove that, so we need to go in, down, grab it. It's like a condom, innit? There we go. Right, now we just need to clean this little entrance bit up, and that's our tunnel front created. So as you can see, the gecko will be able to go through this section here, down into here, all the way along, and then all the way to the back of the enclosure, and then technically could pop out here, also could pop out here, and also could pop out there. So what I'm going to quickly do is just cover the section which we've just done with the clay with the Leolife, and this will make it blend in with the rest of the background. Once done, I'm going to use the hoover to clean up the excess, then we'll do the substrate. So I have the Arcadia Earth mix here, and what we're going to do is pour it into that bucket. And basically I've also got leftover of the leopard gecko bedding, so I'm going to mix some of this in just to give it a little bit more of a natural feel to it. So all I'm simply going to do is simply just scoop it in to where we want it. So we're going to do a little by little. Okay, as you can see, we now have the substrate in. So the next thing we're going to do is add some decor bits. So I want to get these little air plants which I've got. These are just left over from a previous build. They're not too healthy, unfortunately, but that's fine because I don't necessarily want them to be bang alive. It will just add to the aesthetics of the enclosure. So we're going to get these in, and we're going to get a few other little bits in. So I've added this bit of cork bark because it creates that tunnel entrance for us. So we're going to have that bit placed there. We have added these bits in. Obviously we've got the nice little branch there. We've got a few air plants dotted around the enclosure. So the next thing we're going to do is add the rest of the plants and also the last of the rocks and bits and bobs, and then yeah, that's basically it complete. So we'll be able to add the geckos afterwards. So next of all, I have this awesome little grass looking plant. I also have this small little zebra plant. It's just a small little succulent. So that's that one. And then last of all, we also have this one, which is basically like a mini cactus. Just so you know, it isn't sharp. It looks sharp, it really isn't. So the geckos aren't going to hurt themselves on that. So we've got these three plants. Last of all, we have some slate. I'm hoping that we can put a few bits of this in just to add to the aesthetics. And also I have these little rocks, which I would like to try and get in. If I can't get the slate in, then I definitely want these two pieces of rocks in there. But we'll see how we get on once the plants are actually in. And then last of all, I have these little offcuts of cork bark. Now we know that this one's going in, and we're going to have it literally right here, just as the entrance to the front section of the tunnel. And once that's done, that's pretty much the build complete. So we will get the geckos and actually introduce them to their new homes. Next of all is these little bits of rocks. Now I'm planning, I don't know whether to have them just literally like so, sort of thing. In fact, yeah, that's a really nice position for them. Yeah, we'll go with that. Then we have this little cork bark tube, which I plan on having up at the top, sort of just hovering. So there we go, guys. This is what the enclosure looks like at the end of the build. As you can see, we have our tunnel system. We have all of our plants in there. I'm really chuffed with how this enclosure has turned out. Look how cool those little caves are. They're well smart. But yeah, if I'm honest, this is probably the nicest arid bioactive enclosure that I've actually done. And to be fair, it was pretty cheap to build too. So the final thing that we need to do is actually add the geckos. But before we do that, we just need to add some springtails and isopods as our cleanup crew. Now there is actually one other thing which I've actually forgot to include, which is a small bowl of calcium. And then we're going to have a second bowl as a water bowl. And that is our enclosure complete. Just look at that. That is well smart. I'm well impressed that the tunnel system idea actually worked. Let me know in the comments what you think about this build. Okay, so these are the two geckos which we will be adding to the enclosure. So we're going to start off with this one at the front, and then we're going to do the one at the back. So let's get this one into a little pot so we can actually add them in. Coming out. There we go. Straight into that burrow. that is the enclosure build complete. And it seems like our little geckos are settling in really nicely. One of them is currently in this little burrow. The other gecko is actually in the tunnel system around the back. He's just exploring. But yeah, I'm really chuffed with this build. I really like how it's come out. Honestly, these guys really deserved an enclosure like this. So you're probably wanting to see the little geckos enjoying the cave system. So let me show you them. Currently, they're sat in here, right at the front of the enclosure. They're definitely making themselves at home, that's for sure. Honestly, they're so damn cute. I actually love this species. I love the colours and patterns on them. Don't they just look so cool? Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this species loves to burrow, so I'm really glad to see them actually making use of this tunnel system. I'm hoping that by providing the tunnel system for them, it might encourage them to breed, so maybe I'll do an update video if I get any eggs from them. But as you can see, our tunnel system did actually work, so that is how you can create your own bioactive enclosure with a tunnel system for your pet geckos. Let me know in the comments what you think about this build. I hope that I've inspired a lot of you to give this a go yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping us a like to let me know that you enjoyed the video. Also, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a lot more bioactive enclosure builds, because I really enjoy building them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 500 subscribers and I'm pushing for 1,000 by the end of this year. But thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I shall see you in my next video.
See ya!